welcome back to my channel, all those people who aren't watching. Welcome back. I'm learning that this channel is mostly for me, which is okay. Starting off with some nerdy bits like, you know, books, but I'm gonna do boxes, unboxings, which I just thought it'd be fun. I get Loot Crate anyway, and Nerd Block and Arcade Block and whatever, so I was like, I'm gonna do unboxing. Probably gonna have a Comic-Con blog on here, so look out for that. Comic-Con vlog. So look out for that. Maybe give you a tour of my comic book shop. Not sure yet if I should. It's not gonna be much of a tour because we're the little shop that could. We are a tiny comic book shop. Like, we're small, which is fine. We're just building up because we have really tall ceilings, so we're building up. But yeah, for all you people who are not there, and I'm just talking to myself, which is totally fine. It's just a good excuse to talk to yourself. What's up? Welcome back. A couple videos back, I said I was reading Stranger. I wasn't. When I was reading Stranger in a Strange Land, I think it was like the sci-fi books I recommend video. I mentioned a book, The Cat That Walks Through Walls. And so, I have finally finished that book. I finished this book about 3 days ago. This is a book that's taken me forever to read. Like 2 months. An average book this size, would take me like a week tops. It's taking me months, and it's because I had to stop and start and stop and start and stop and start. I took notes on this in my trusty little composition notebook, and we're back. Hi. Had to turn off the air, forgot it was on. Probably should turn off the fan. Back to what I was talking about. The Cat That Walks Through Walls by The Cat Who Walks Through Walls by Robert Heinlein. This book, the reason I got interested in reading this book is because I read Stranger in a Strange Land, which is hands down one of my favorite sci-fi books ever, if not my favorite sci-fi book ever. Sounds like dying wells outside. I started reading this because of that book. I bought it like around the time I finished it the first time I read The Stranger in Strange Land, and I bought this and I was like, oh, I'm totally gonna read this because it's awesome and I love this author's last book. I tried reading Starship Troopers, which is nothing like the movie, by the way. The movie is completely campy and glorious, as we all know. The movie is dope. But the book, also by Robert Heinlein, is very militaristic. It's very focused on the military, and it's not as playful as the film. So I couldn't get into it that much because it was so much detail about strategy and stuff, and it makes me sound, it's just not my thing. Military books are just not my thing. So I didn't get that one, but I heard about the cat. I read the back of The Cat Who Walks Through Walls in Barnes & Noble, and you know, sounded like a good book. I'm not going to read the back to you of this book, which is something I have been doing on this channel, but no, I'm just going to talk to you about it, and then, you know, we'll read the back later, or probably not, who cares. I'm just going to talk to you about it. So it's about this guy. It opens with this guy, Richard Ames. He's at dinner at a restaurant on a date with Gwendolyn. And she goes off to the bathroom. When she goes off to the bathroom, a man comes up to the table and sits down. When he sits down, he starts telling Richard, the main character, that he needs to kill, it was Marvin Tolliver, and he needs to kill him by this certain day. And then Richard Ames wasn't having any of it. He was like, you're being rude, blah, blah, blah. You can't even like ask me for a drink, blah, blah, blah. Like, he was just talking about how rude this man was being. So finally, the man got him to listen, and towards the end of their conversation, he almost, Richard asked him who he was, And when the man was about to tell him, he was randomly shot with an exploding dart. And then the employees at the restaurant swiftly and promptly after the man died at Richard's table, took the body to the back room and shut the door. And then Gwen came back and sat down. It was almost like nothing happened. Nobody freaked out. Nobody saw a thing. It was weird. So that's how it opened. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be dope. It's going to be intriguing. Super into this. Let's get it going. So like the first couple of chapters I read in, I think the first 10 chapters I read in one sitting because I was so into it. But then the book started to slow down. It started to feel like reading. The reasons why I complained about Starship Troopers is the reasons why I had a hard time reading this book, because it would get technical. So it would talk about the future science. So he lives on Golden Rule, which is a settlement in space. It's kind of like a space station. That's the best way to describe it, but it's not a space station. So if you've seen the movie Elysium, it's kind of like Elysium and like a big ring where everybody lives in it in space, floating around, orbiting something. I don't think it's orbiting anything. It might be orbiting Luna. I don't really know because there's so much description that I just get lost. Like it's almost at a certain point like reading a manual, and I just kind of stop listening, and I had to keep rereading it just to get just the gist of what the technology is. So he lives on Golden Rule, and then they started explaining Golden Rule, and it just went on. It was like reading a romantic novel. That's how I felt reading this. It was like, okay, I get it. Technology. But I also like that about it, that he can explain, that Heinlein can explain the science so well so you can understand it and visualize it. It's just at certain points in the story, it comes out of nowhere and it completely it's like slamming the brakes on the action. Like he's running for his life through Golden Rule, and now we're explaining bounce tubes. Now we're explaining, or he's trying to escape a car chase on Luna, but now we're explaining how the cars work and how landing the car on Luna and the actual fucking degree at which he needs to land in order not to, it's so scientific. I'm gonna find an excerpt and read it to you. I have to read to you what I'm trying to tell you. So I'm just gonna find an excerpt. Okay, 16 years later, I found it. So here we go. We were in the same orbit as Golden Rule, 300 clicks above Luna, and floating along with the habitat at 1.5 kilometers per second. 1.5477 K/S is what I punched into the pilot computer.
Because that's what it said on the crib sheet I got at Doc Waller's office. In order to get down to the surface, I had to get a lower and faster orbit. And the way to do that was to slow down. But it was more complex than that. An airless landing requires that you get down to the lowest and fastest orbit. But you have to kill that speed so that you arrive at contact with ground zero at a relative speed. You must keep bending down so that contact is straight down and without a bump or not much.
And without a skid or not much. What they call a Sigurd stick orbit. Hard to spell and even harder to calculate. But it can be done. Armstrong and Aldrin did it.
Hateful feel that the space travel would have delayed half a century or so. We don't honor our pioneers enough. There's another way to land. Stop dead right over the rock where you want to touch down. Fall like a rock. Break with your jet. So precisely that you kiss the ground like a juggler touching an egg on a plate. One minor difficulty. Right angle turns are about the most no-good piloting one can do. You waste the delta V something scandalous. Your boat probably doesn't carry that much fuel. Delta V probably driving for change in velocity. Because in equations, Greek letter delta means fractional change and V stands for velocity. And please remember that velocity is a direction as well as speed, which is why rocket ships don't make U-turns.
That was just him talking about landing his ship, or what he needs to do to land his ship on Luna. And then it just keeps going about it. So this is like four pages. Like I stopped because then they start talking to each other. It breaks up with dialogue, but it goes on for nearly this whole page about the science and then the history of landing on the moon, because they're trying to go to Luna, to the colonies, to run away from Golden Rule because everybody is out to him because he was framed for the murder of the guy that died at his table that I mentioned earlier. And also because he's a wanted man. Why is he wanted? He doesn't know. Nobody knows why. I'm not going to tell you why because it'll ruin the story, but yeah, it's got, in the basis of it, it's a really, really good story. It's just there's moments like that, more frequent than anything else, that you have to read a bunch of scientific mumbo jumbo that it's important to the story and it pertains to the science within the story, which is also important to help you realize what's going on, but there has to be a better way for you to get that across instead of doing pages and pages of just like the science behind it. Like, I get it. It's a flying spacecraft that's trying to go from one satellite to another. You don't need to tell me the science about it. It's dope, you know it. But if you're gonna tell it to me, basically dumb it down. Like, I'm trying not to sound stupid, but just dumb it down, because it kills the story. It stops it, it hits the brakes, and you're just sitting there like, fuck this, I'm never gonna get to the good part, which is the actual story. I could give two shits about how the car is gonna land. But that's neither here nor there. That's why this took me like 3 months to read, because I kept hitting huge sections like that in the book, and I just had to stop. I'd get through it and I'd start to fall asleep, or I just put it down because it was getting on my nerves, and watch like Netflix, because I just couldn't get through it. Okay, after all that bitching, so Gwen, okay, so let's just sum it up. This book is about Richard Ames and Gwen going through time, space, and traveling through different dimensions to find themselves, basically to learn about each other and to find themselves. Basically, it's a honeymoon story. It's about Gwen and Richard's honeymoon. The whole book is about that, which I think is kind of dope, because you learn more about her and her family, he and his family, and the way the situations they land in pertain to why they're together. So it's actually a really good book. It's basically a love story, and it revolves around these two characters. Gwen is a great character. She's super interesting, she's super funny, and she's not characterized as your normal flat female character. Heinlein's books, the women's are just, you know, sassy, witty chicks that, you know, get shit done. And Gwen is no different. She's sassy, she gets shit done, she's very capable, and she doesn't need anybody to rescue her, including her husband, Richard, which she rescues throughout the whole book. She's constantly rescuing him because he needs it. He needs to be rescued. But it's basically a honeymoon story. It's a love story. It's really, really good. I would recommend it for people who can have patience through those long technical paragraphs, because at the core of the book is really good. Once you get past those, which are sprinkled anytime new interesting technology shows up in the book, be prepared to have your ear talked off, or your inner ear, because you're reading, your inner ear talked off about how this shit works. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself when he says how it's being used in context of the story, but then he breaks down the actual technology and the history of it, and you're just like, so with that in mind, the book is good. It's got great characters, it's funny, it's entertaining, it's an action-packed, interesting honeymoon for these two. And I honestly, I don't have autofocus. I honestly recommend this to anyone. I honestly recommend it to anybody who feels like they want to read a fun sci-fi book, because that's what it is. It's pretty fun. Robert Heinlein, The Cat Who Walks Through Walls. I would give it, I put a thing on my notes. Oh, also interesting, for those of you who are fans of Heinlein and you've read Stranger in a Strange Land, Joel Hershaw is in this book. Just let that seep in. For those of you who know who Joel Hershaw is, he is in this book. He is in it. It's crazy, right? And it's, what's actually interesting about this book, because now is the interesting part of this book, is what it says about literature, because it's a funny satire on the genre, the space adventures genre. It makes fun of itself in that way, and then it's also a commentary on literature as a whole. So the end of this book is just like really crazy and mind-bending, and not only is it hard to follow when they throw in those future tech things, but it's gonna get weird, and you're gonna be like, what day is it? And when you read it, get back to me, because you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Tell me in the comments below how you liked it. It's a really good book. I give it like 4 out of 5 stars. I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5. I'm gonna be generous. It would be 5 if I didn't have to fucking push through those long dialogues of tech things. So, you know, comment below what you think about this book. If you've read this book, you know, if you exist, comment below. Pretty sure I'm talking to myself, which is fine. Yeah, but fucking read it. It's good. Right now, I'm reading Lagoon by the same author who wrote Akata Witch. I cannot pronounce her name without butchering it, and lots of practice, so I'm not gonna try, but look up those books, Lagoon and Akata Witch. I'll probably do a review about it when I'm done. It's pretty good so far. I'm saying that because I've read the first page, and you know, it's pretty good so far. I haven't gotten any further than that. So yeah, if you exist, you know, comment if you want to see a Comic-Con vlog, because I was thinking of doing that because I am going to Comic-Con. Or if you want to see a tour of my store and gaming lounge, because it's there. It's very small, but it's there. And it's not quite done yet, but if you guys want to see a tour, be happy to give you one. And yeah, the end of this month there'll be an unboxing video of Loot Crate. This, what is this? Is it June? June's theme is dystopia, so I'll be doing an unboxing of that. Nobody really cares, but I'm gonna. So if you want to see what shit I got, I'll show you. And that's it. I think that's all I got. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, why are you still watching? Just go away. Just go away. You can give me a thumbs down. I don't care. Just go away. Because it's obvious you don't like it. So, and the fact that you sat through this whole thing is pretty impressive. So you might kind of like it.